Hello and welcome. You're watching Head to Head. I'm Carrie Oderman with UATV. President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, met with the President of Egypt on the sidelines of the 74th session of the UN General Assembly at the end of September. The leaders of the two countries noted the intensification of Ukrainian-Egyptian political dialogue and outlined promising directions for the further development of bilateral cooperation. So, how can Ukraine and Egypt expand trade, economic investment, and cooperation? To discuss this and much more, we welcome to our studio today Hossam, Ambassador from Egypt in Ukraine. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you, Carrie.
Many Ukrainians have already gotten to know Egypt because in the past few years, there's been a huge influx of tourism from Ukraine to Egypt. I know you're welcoming these new guests with open arms. Why don't you tell us about this and how it's affecting the relations?
I think first, I have to admit the sector of tourism is one that is very much driven by cultural interest from Ukrainian side, interest in our seaside resorts and so on. There are a number of factors playing in here that are maybe helping in increasing this. One is the steadily and constantly advancing bilateral relations on a governmental level. We have better understanding, we have more exchanges, we have a room to remove obstacles and hurdles facing our Ukrainian visitors to our resorts, and much has been done in this regard, and in close cooperation with the Minister of Foreign Affairs here and the other related authorities, we could actually bypass some obstacles in the past. Another is the overwhelming interest of the Egyptian government in providing security, stability, and all kind of high-quality services in our touristic resorts. And if you know the amount of effort that goes into this, that making sure that tourists and our guests in Egypt are enjoying wonderful vacations at very competitive prices of very high-end standards on every level, you would be very impressed. And I can tell you that we take this issue of security very, very seriously. So this has been the case. We have also a number of other elements, tour operators who are actually providing flights, as I understand, like to Sharm el-Sheikh and Hurghada. There are flights from 8 major cities, big number of flights every week. There is also the resumption of direct flights that occurred in April 2018, bringing interest of the Ukrainian tourists also to visit the extremely culturally wealthy capital of the country. We have endless number of museums, many of them still in the making. We have a very huge a landmark museum that is going to be opened in a few months. The gem costed $1 billion, encloses some stuff. I myself am very much looking forward to visit. So there is this constant developmental effort by Egypt to make sure that our resorts are very high-end, our security is fine, our infrastructure that is there gets better and better, and that our services are not just competitive on an international or regional level, but they're outstanding. And I can tell you indeed that we do have a package that is very difficult to compete. And this has led over the previous couple of years into a very notable steady and slow increase in the number of Ukrainian students, a number of Ukrainian tourists we receive. Maybe now near to the figure of 1.2 million visited Egypt last year.
Well, then, Ukrainians are getting to know Egypt and their culture. President Zelensky got to know President Sisi when they met at the UN General Assembly meeting. Do you know how that conversation went and what they spoke about?
I can first tell you, of course, that Egypt sees Ukraine as a friendly country. We have very healthy relations with Ukraine based on mutual interest. We are very understanding of each other. We know where we stand on all key international issues, but we have slowly and very consistently built step by step a relationship on mutual benefit. So it is not just about tourism, but it's also on a number of other scales. We have the meeting that took place recently between the two heads of state was not coming out of a vacuum. It was a result of very slow but promising progress that occurred. So we moved in the past several years. For example, we've had in September a joint committee between the two countries. We had over 30 delegates as part of this delegation last year here in Kiev. It was the first time to hold it in 8 years. So this was a breakthrough. Also, this joint committee spoke of cooperation in a wide range of issues that are on the table. We saw eye to eye on a number of ways forward. So this is moving very well. We have intensified our cooperation also on our contacts on a political level. I have very close contacts with the foreign ministry almost daily. We have a very healthy and consultative manner of work. We work in complete transparency. So this has been, I think, something that helped get us to welcome the previous Minister of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine in Egypt on an official visit in April 2018. And we are also seeing it as one of those steps that led to the meeting of both presidents and so on. But I can tell you that President Sisi was among the very first leaders who actually congratulated President Zelensky for assuming office in Ukraine. Our respect for the Ukrainians is high. This is a very friendly people, and we interact with them in Egypt as tourists and on business and on a number of other levels.
Let's talk a little bit about the business aspects. There are many Ukrainians that are opening businesses right now in Egypt. Do you want to talk about the sectors?
I know that there's a big interaction on the business level. I can just highlight that the trade balance is around $2 billion. This makes Egypt the #1 African and the Middle Eastern trade partner with Ukraine. But I can tell you that also we have this active effort on both sides to promote interaction in that field and highlight and upgrade this merely trade exchange into cooperation and efforts to jointly benefit from advancing a very visionary developmental view for Egypt. You know, now Egypt is going through a very big change. If now for anybody who's like me, like when I go to the country back in several. When I go every year, for example, for my annual leave, I'm very surprised, very positively surprised. The number of roads, the thousands of miles of new roads that are done, buildings that are set up, new administrative capital that is amazing, museums that are thrilling. And it's very good that Ukrainian businesses understood that there's something for them there. I can tell you, for example, that now the new tram in Alexandria is from Ukraine. I can tell you that the big association of companies of Ukraine have already been bidding on the various bids of the government to upgrade the steel industry, the national steel industry in Egypt. This is a very huge contract that is very important also for us. I can, for example, tell you that the only office of Naftogaz outside Ukraine is in Egypt. And hundreds of millions of investments in exploration for petrol is been put there. I can tell you that big companies like Nibelun has been investing in Egypt, planning $2 billion over a period of 10 years, with very helpful elements of it, upgrading our national processes in handling grains and in dealing with them. So the picture is positive and it is dynamic, and we as governments try to pave the way for this interaction and to advance it and facilitate it in every possible way.
There's been an influx of students from Egypt coming to Ukraine in the past years. That's many Ukrainians' experience with Egyptians here. It's not always been a positive thing for these students, though, because of drawbacks. Would you like to discuss these with us? Yes,
I can tell you. We have currently in Ukraine 3,500 Egyptian students who are studying in different Ukrainian universities. Some of those, good number of those were brought here to Ukraine through intermediaries that tend later on to put the student through either fraudulent practices, so the student would find himself in another wrong university or not getting the education he expected, or end up being blackmailed for his paperwork or for passing from one year to another and so on. And we receive from our students almost on a daily basis complaints in this regard. We are working very closely with the Ukrainian side on this. We are cooperating and exchanging information in this regard, observing the situation very much. I very often try to exert every possible effort to talk to universities or talk to authorities to try to assist the students to the extent possible. But of course, there's a need for this joint governmental dialogue and joint work in order for us to address this and go beyond it. I understand that Ukraine provides fantastic education for Ukrainians. The situation might be a bit different when it comes to foreigners, at least for Egyptians from our experience. Some have good experience, but a big majority confronts different types of problems that we are now trying to address, because we see that on every other possible and every other element of the bilateral relations, we are moving forward, we're progressing, we're advancing very positively and nicely. On education, we're trying to put in it enough effort to also bring it to this level, addressing those problems, trying to eliminate this negative role by intermediaries who are there just for the profit, not caring about the student, or universities who are longing to cooperate with intermediaries to bring them the biggest number of students to make profits, while not being in a situation to actually guarantee that those students are going to get proper education or have their rights preserved or be immune against possible blackmail or extortion by the brokers. So it's another area, and I can tell you that the feedback we're getting from the Ukrainian government is very positive. We have people with outstanding integrity who understand fully that this situation cannot continue and that it is not sustainable, and they are working with us very closely, and we're doing everything we can. And I am very optimistic that on a bilateral level, on this too, we can achieve progress and move forward.
Well, it sounds like there's been a lot of progress made on all of the fronts. Just one short last question. In the next 1 to 2 years, are there any key projects that Ukraine and Egypt have?
I can tell you that the relationship with Ukraine is a very wise one. We are basically, as I said, it is anchored on mutual benefit, on mutual understanding, on mutual respect. We are pursuing our interests in areas where we can advance those interests. Slowly, this has moved us to build a strong relationship that is well-founded. It has enhanced a political dialogue. It has encouraged exchanges on various political levels, and this is very helpful. This has promoted, of course, mutual understanding, enabled us to work together better. Our effort and ambitions for the bilateral relations are driven by our mutual interests. These are many. I think that the potential of the bilateral relations with Ukraine and the potential of bilateral cooperation is far from fully unfolded. I think we still have a lot to do. We still have a lot of areas where our cooperation can advance benefits for our peoples, and I think that we have everything needed to do so in full trust and confidence to each other. So my understanding is the next year or two are going to be promising. Also, this curve of slowly building up a very healthy, very mutually appreciated relationship will continue. The prospects are wide. I hope we can see further cooperation in industrial areas, in agricultural areas, in medical areas, in education. If we can twist this forward in a way that rather than have brokers market bad, corrupt education, we can actually enable our students to get the true quality of education that Ukraine truly has without brokers. That we can encourage exchanges on every different sector of life, where we are working on advancing our abilities as a nation in Egypt, and using it as a platform for cooperation with friendly countries like Ukraine. And I think this is going to continue, and I think the determination of both sides on moving forward is clear, and we will continue to exert every effort with our Ukrainian counterparts to maintain this very healthy and very friendly relationship and build on it and further expand it.
Well, to summarize, it's a healthy and good relationship that looks very promising. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today.
Thank you so much, Carrie. My pleasure.
That was Hossam Ali, Ambassador of Egypt to Ukraine. Thank you for watching, and stay tuned for more with UATV.